Well, just a real quick intro. And most of you know that Smedley Butler was alive from 1881 to 1940. And he's probably the most famous Marine general. He was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor twice for bravery. I think he's the only Major General that has ever achieved that kind of status. And he was extremely famous as a general in the United States. And then after he retired in 1933, he became even more famous throughout the United States for, first of all, bringing a halt to the attempted military takeover of the United States government. And that was done by the rich and the powerful J.P. Morgan and Prescott Bush. Yes, that Prescott Bush, the grandfather of W. And then when that was over with and hushed up, but it was still, there was a congressional hearing, then he became a very strong advocate against war throughout the United States. And he gave probably close to 1,000 speeches on war as a racket throughout the United States from 1935 to 1937. And he could see that the war was gathering steam in the 30s, and he was really very disappointed by that. And he died in 1940, just after the Germans bombed Guernica. So anyway, that's just the kind of the background of who the guy was. He lived really several different lives. His father was a congressional representative in Pennsylvania, and that's where he grew up. So I think that's all I need to tell you about the background of Smedley Butler. Smedley Butler here, United States Marine Corps, Major General, retired. And I'm here to tell you that war is just a racket. A racket is probably best described as something that is not what it seems to the majority of people. Only a small inside group knows what it's really about. It's conducted for the benefit of the very few at the expense of the masses. Now, I believe in an adequate defense at the shoreline, nothing else. If a nation wants to come over here and fight, then we'll fight. The trouble is, in America, the dollar only earns about 6% over here. And it gets restless. It's to go overseas, where it can earn 100%. Then, the flag follows the dollar. The soldiers follow the flag. Well, I will not go to war again, as I've done, to protect the lousy interests of the bankers. Only two reasons to go to war. One, to protect our homes. And the other, Bill of Rights. War for any other reason is just a racket. And there isn't a trick in the racketeering bag that the military gang is blind to. They've got their fingermen to point out the enemies. They've got their muscle men to destroy the enemies. They've got their brain men to make all the preparations. Then there's the boss, super-nationalistic capitalism. Now, it may seem odd for me, a military, to make these comparisons. Well, truthfulness compels me to. I spent 33 years and 4 months in active military service in the nation's most agile military force, the Marine Corps. Served in all the commissioned ranks from second lieutenant to major general. And during that period, And during that period, I spent almost all of my time as a high-class muscle man for big business, Wall Street, and the bankers. In short, I was a racketeer, a gangster for capitalism. I suspected I was part of that racket at the time. Now, of course, I'm sure of it. Like most men in the military profession, I never had a thought of my own until I left the service. My mental faculties were in suspended animation while I just followed the orders, the higher-ups. That's typical of everyone in the military service. I helped make Mexico, especially Tampico, safe for American oil interests in 1914. I helped make Haiti and Cuba a decent place for the National City Bank boys to collect their revenues in. I helped in the raping over many Central American republics for Wall Street. I helped purify Nicaragua for the International Bank of J.P. Morgan in 1909 to 1912. Haven't we heard that name before? I helped bring light to the Dominican Republic for American sugar interests in 1916. I helped see to it that in China, that Standard Oil went on its way unmolested. I was a Marine for United Fruit. During that time, I had what the boys in the back room would say was a swell racket. And, looking back, I think I could have given Al Capone a few hints. The best he could do was operate in 3 districts. I operated in 3 continents. War is a racket. Always has been. It's probably the oldest, easily the most profitable, certainly the most vicious. It's the only one that is international in scope. It's the only one where profits are recorded in dollars and losses, lives. It's conducted for the benefit of the very few, at the expense of the very many. Out of war, few people make huge fortunes. So I say, to hell with war! Thank you very much. So let's get out of Afghanistan. Thank you for the great reception. Someone once said that you can hear the wind in the branches in the wilderness. You can hear see the waves crashing on the beach, things like that. But there's no sound, sweeter sound in all of nature than applause. The appropriation of your fellow human beings. So thank you very much for that. Just a few things I would like to point out. Books have been written on the subject, not recently. However, I've seen a resurgence in stuff that I see on the internet about Smedley Butler. And so I got started in this, as a matter of fact, just as matter of interest, I think, interesting to me anyway, that there was only a little bit of his material that was ever recorded, and he did not have a written speech. Now that piece that I did for you today was based on a magazine article that he wrote, and there were other bits and pieces that I put together to come up with that presentation. He was an eloquent speaker, and he spoke without notes. And you can say, well, all generals are persuasive and impressive speakers. They make the guys go up over the top and face the machine guns, right? He was particularly eloquent and particularly famous as a speaker even while he was in the Marine Corps. And then the other part is that since he did this all on his own without notes and so forth, he finally ended up writing a book. And this is called War's a Racket, and it's a small pamphlet actually, and it's in 4 chapters. And my guess is that this contains most of what he used for his presentations, but it's not in speech form. And if you did the whole thing, it would probably run an hour and a half or so. So this isn't quite the thing. The book that I really like, which I read long after I got started doing this, is called The Plot to Seize the White House, which is really an excellent piece that explains how that all came about. And what happened there is that the rich and the powerful really needed a figurehead of the prestige and fame of Smedley Butler. And so what they did, Butler was really famous for being involved in the Veterans of Foreign Wars and was very antagonistic towards the American Legion. And so he was a great figurehead in 1933, just after he had retired. And so they assumed, with his military background, that he would be just the right person for that job. Unfortunately, they were in error. And so he strung them along and made all kinds of, because you can't just come out and say, well, there's going to be a military takeover of the government. You've got to have the documentation to back it up. And so over a period of about a year, from 1933 to 1934, he did that. And then obviously was able to, at the appropriate time, expose them. And they did everything they could to cover it up. Unfortunately, they were unable to completely control the United States government at that point, and there was a congressional hearing, and it was chaired by, interestingly enough, John McCormick, who eventually became Speaker of the House. And all of that is covered in the book, The Plot to Seize the White House. There's an extensive biography of him, the Maverick Marine, and he is actually the bio that is contained within the Plot to Seize the White House is very good. I would call upon you to, let's see, there was a piece in here that I particularly liked that would illustrate the kind of writing that he was capable of. And now I probably can't find it. I thought I had it marked. Let's try this. Yeah, this is very good. He was an elegant writer, very persuasive and very effective. This is the only thing that was ever recorded by him. It's a transcript, and at that time, I don't know if any of you are aware of the history of oral recording, but it started out with wire. The wire recorders were the first ones that were used to record people like Edward R. Murrow during the Second World War and so forth, and tape came later. But anyway, he is talking to, on this broadcast, he's urging the mothers of America not to let their sons be sent overseas as cannon fodder. And he said, now, you, mothers particularly, the only way you can resist all this war hysteria and the beating of the tom-toms is by asserting the love you bear your boys. When you listen to some well-worded, some well-delivered war speech, just remember, it's nothing but sound. No amount of sound can make up to you for the loss of your boys. After you've heard one of those speeches and your blood is all hot and you want to bite somebody like Hitler, go upstairs to where your boy is asleep. Look at it. Put your hand on that spot on the back of his neck, the place you used to love to kiss when he was a baby. Just rub it a little. You won't wake him up. He knows it's you. Just look at his strong, fine, young body, because only the best boys are chosen for war. Look at this splendid young creature who's part of yourself. Then close your eyes for a moment, and I'll tell you what can happen. Somewhere 5,000 miles from home, night, darkness, cold, a drizzling rain, the noise is terrific, all hell's broken loose, a star shell bursts in the air, its unearthly flare lights up the muddy field. There's a lot of tangled, rusty barbed wire out there, and a boy is hanging on. His stomach ripped out, he's feebly calling for help and water. His lips are white and drawn. He's in agony. There's your boy. That same boy who's lying in bed tonight. The same boy who trusts you. Are you going to run out on him? Are you going to let someone beat a drum or blow a bugle and make him chase after it? Thank God this is a democracy, and by your voice and your vote, you can save your boy. Isn't that great stuff? He wasn't just a speech maker, and he wasn't just a general, and he wasn't just a politician, but maybe just very quickly say that how this all came about. I had knee surgery, and I couldn't run, and so I took my dog out for walks, just like if I was running. And walking is really boring. And so I thought, well, what can I do that would be practical? And then I thought back to my father, years ago, had told me about Smedley Butler and had extolled his virtues to me. And I'd always remembered, it's an easy name to remember, right? And I thought, you know, that war's a racket speech, I remember that. Well, maybe I could memorize that while I'm just walking along. And of course I did, and I found it and put it together and typed it out and put it in my jacket, and as I walked along I referred to it and so forth, because I've done a lot of plays and I've memorized a lot of stuff, but I've never memorized 7 minutes worth or so, just straight text like that. And so I memorized it, and I said to my wife, well, I'm ready. And she sat down, and I stood in front of her, and I couldn't remember a damn thing.